before the World Conservation Congress, before this major IUCN conference, the newly elected and now on board CEO of the Global Environment Facility, Dr. Naoko Ishii. She came on board 5 weeks ago, and she was unanimously elected by the GEF Council to lead at the realm of the facility, and it gives us, a lot of proud, and we're very proud to have had the opportunity to have Dr. Ishii become our new leader. So this is a great opportunity for her to explain to you her mission, vision, and what she will bring to the facility over the next several years. So now, please.
Well, good evening to everybody. Actually, I'm really honored to be elected, and I'm really excited to be here in front of this distinguished audience. Well, as you know, I'm 1 month old in this new job, so I can't really pretend that I really know this work well. But nonetheless, I came with some kind of vision, and vision where the GEF should be in, say, 2020, say, 10 years from now. And I just would like to present it for our discussion and to the further consultation with you. So what I'm presenting you today, which is actually available online at the GEF website, is just to take it as a kind of starting point and for a kind of kick-off for further consultation. I think this community, everybody in this room is very, very aware that we are facing the unprecedented challenge in the coming decade. That the next decade we will see that another 700 million of the population to be added to the current one. Then that I will see another more than 1 billion additional middle class population to be added. That grows maybe 50% more. While at the same time, we all know that still about 1 billion people are lacking that access to safe water or electricity. That at the same time, we all know that our planetary boundaries we have already exceeded, almost reached that the limitation, or on some of the important ones we have already exceeded that the limitation. So how we can make those things, adding up or to make them compatible. So that is a huge challenge ahead of us. Today I actually talk a little bit about how I want to address this issue. That one thing which we are currently missing is this global environmental framework or global environmental agreement. And of course, we have been quite disappointed that it really doesn't come up anytime soon. But rather than complaining or blaming that our global leaders are not taking action, rather I would like to see that where we can make some progress towards this challenge. From that point of view, I think that GEF can do a lot of things, and based on the last 20 years of knowledge, we more or less come to know what works and what doesn't work, and what kind of things we want to do to have a systemic transformational impact to this earth. One point I actually emphasized at today's leaders' dialogue is how we can value the natural capital, how we can promote the value of the healthy ecosystem, and how we can integrate those values into the system, economic system, so that decision makers, be it the government or private sector or civil citizens, can make a decision based on those new accounting, and also say that to measure the progress in a different way. So that was a kind of broad goal, but to be more specific, what the GEF can really do towards that goal. Well, I think, well, again, that I'm 1 month old in this job, but then based on that 1 month experience, I think that GEF can do maybe 4 important things. But GEF can play 4 important roles towards this challenge. I think that GEF should continue to a promoter of innovation, not only new technology, but new ideas, new model. So they continue to be needs to continue to be a promoter of new way of doing business. The second role I think GEF should play is GEF should continue to be a champion of regional and global commons, and GEF needs to exert a convening power, not only government and public sector, the policy makers, but citizens, the private sector, and CSOs, so that we can create some good and enabling environment, and fix the good decisions can be taken. The third role I think that GEF can play a lot is we want to be a partner of choice. As you know, GEF, by definition, de facto, we are the partnership institution. So that how we can make this advantage of having a lot of partners towards the benefit to the recipient countries. So that's but I'd like to talk a little bit. The last one is that GEF want to be a financial catalyst. As we all know, that the financial architecture of the global environment is rapidly changing. There are a lot of new funds already born or to be born. The Green Climate Fund is one of them. So that where you want to see the GEF in this rapidly changing financial architecture. Also, we all know that even if the public sector, public government money is limited, there is a lot of capital in the private sector. So how we can tap those private sector capital? That's a kind of fourth area I'm kind of thinking of. And briefly, knowing this is a community who care that biodiversity a lot, let me just briefly touch upon what do we really mean, I mean by that. In terms of innovation, GEF to be an innovator of new ideas. I think that then, in this one, and particularly link up to the today's session, that financing, how to finance the biodiversity. One good example was that say a conservation trust fund. Bhutan is the first generation of those conservation trust funds. But by now, we know this trust fund kind of evolving and becoming very mature, and not only to collect money from donors, but it kind of helped the government create actually a lot of capacity of how to manage the asset, how to integrate a lot of challenges together, and how to mainstream those challenges into the government system. So that is one kind of good model that how GEF can be a promoter of a new ideas in terms of financing the biodiversity. Also, I mentioned today that the water fund is another very good success. So that under the water fund, basically the idea is how to identify the natural value of the natural capital, in this case, say, water delivery or watershed management, so that the small landholders can be compensated by the beneficiary of that water delivery on the downstream of the river. So that kind of system is basically how to create a identify the value of natural capital and link up with the protector of the natural capital and the beneficiary or user of that capital. So these are kind of very the model that I mentioned, that GEF wanted to be an innovator of new way of doing business, and we have had a lot of successful case, particularly in Latin America, together with an IDB or TNC. The second role I mentioned is that we want to be a champion of global commons and regional commons. Well, in this case, the example I'm so impressed is say a lot of cases international waters say the Danube and Black Sea program. For the 150 years that the Danube was kind of plagued by global tragedy of global commons, but since we and others came in and created a platform among those 19 countries which were kind of suffering from the collapse of the Soviet Union, and a lot of distrust was pervasive. But by creating the common platform and working together for global commons, they have succeeded, and we help them to clean up the river and make it as a kind of integrated water management model. So that's another example of the GEF's success, and actually your success to be a champion of global commons. Well, the third role I mentioned is a partner of choice. Well, GEF, by definition, we need to work with partners. It's not only implementing agencies, but also the local government, say the communities and CSOs, most importantly, so that I just want to mention the example like the Coral Triangle Initiative, and it's those people do care that biodiversity in the ocean come together and create a platform, contribute with their through their comparative advantage and making a huge significant change there. So the last one is really the financing. That's a quite a challenging one. Again, that one good example I mentioned maybe today is this this conservation trust fund, which started kind of simple one, but become very much evolving into the matured one, which has a lot of new rules in it. But also that in order for us to create, to be innovative and to work with the private sector, say capital in the private market, we actually need to work with the private sector more and more. The example I actually used today is like a certification system, which is a kind of linking up that the producer whose product is kind of sustainably managed, and the consumers who are willing to pay for the premium. So there are quite a number of examples that GEF, with your help, have demonstrated that there are a way to link up or to identify the natural capital, value of natural capital, and link up with the consumers. But I think the real challenge is ahead of us, and we need to be really clear about where the GEF value addition could be and where the unique role that GEF can play. And we need to do it through this rapidly changing the architecture of global environmental financing. So it's a kind of area where I actually like to work more and more with a private sector and CSOs, that kind of model we can come up with. All in all, in order for GEF to be fully to fully utilize our important unlimited resources, I want to place the importance on the sustainability and impacts on the ground, which should be scaled up. One area I'd like to work more is that knowledge management. Yes, we have accumulated so much of good models and knowledge in the past 20 years, but to what extent we were effective to kind of analyze it and present it as a usable model to this community, I have to say we need to work more, and we need to collaborate with a community like yours, that how we can make it more usable, how to make it more effective to the broader community. So that's kind of my very quick 5 minutes, my vision of 1 month old. But as I mentioned, I really want to use this kind of opportunity to kick off the conversation when we are about to initiate the long-term strategy of, say, GEF 2020. So with that, I'd like to ask Russ to come in. Thank you so much.
Before Russ starts his presentation, just a couple of remarks regarding the objectives of this meeting. We have 2 major objectives. The first one was just accomplished, which is introducing to all of you the new leader of the Global Environment Facility and her views about the future of the GEF and its strategic direction. The other is to describe to you a little bit how we are going to be approaching the development of a new strategy for the GEF leading to the 6th replenishment of the trust fund. As you know, the GEF is the financial mechanism of the CBD, and we are honored to have here with us tonight the Executive Secretary of the CBD, Dr. Braulio Dias, who is not as new as you know in his job, so he's probably going to be past his honeymoon period pretty soon, but he's still enjoying a lot of that freshness. And Braulio will be at the realm of the CBD COP coming up in next 5 weeks in Hyderabad in India, where a lot of these questions will be addressed. So we've asked our friend Dr. Russell Miermeyer, who doesn't need introduction to an audience like this, to actually tell us, what are the challenges for biodiversity, what are the opportunities that we may be using already and that we may use into the future. And then I'm going to tell you how we are approaching our current biodiversity strategy and what else needs to be done, and then we open for questions and suggestions. So Russ, with this, please.
Thank you. First of all, thank you, Naoko, and thank you, Gustavo, for inviting me. I'm very pleased to be here. And I want to start off by saying good evening, buenas noches, boa nuit, and boa noite aos amigos brasileiros. I know Portuguese isn't one of the official languages of the Haitian yet, but I see many Brazilian friends in the audience. In fact, I see many friends here, and I'm going to apologize to those of you who've heard large portions of this presentation many times before, but I do see some new faces as well, so hopefully this can give you some useful information. Now, I always like to start off my presentations with some pictures of non-human primates. Does anyone know what this is? No. This is the emperor tamarin from the western Amazon. It's a very interesting little tamarin species that's named after Emperor Franz Joseph of Austria. This is the famous golden lion tamarin from Brazil. And this is the Indri, the largest of the lemurs native to Madagascar. I'm going to be talking a lot about Madagascar during the course of this presentation because I think it's a very good symbol of some of the challenges that we face. Can you all hear me? Am I close enough to the mic? Yeah, it's okay. And I show these pictures because really I'm a field biologist. I spent the better part of the last 40 years or so running around the tropical rainforests of the world. I'm seeing more primates than anyone else has in the wild, I'm sure, and probably more rainforests by now as well. But I always like to set the stage with that so that people understand what my roots are and how this has really colored my perspectives. So I'm going to talk a little bit about biodiversity conservation, the GEF, which is the topic of tonight's presentation. Start off why biodiversity. Don't really need to do this very much with all of you, but for new people here, I know there's 80% of the people at this meeting are first timers to an IUCN conference, so I think it's good to say a little bit about that. How we're really still in an exciting era of discovery of new species and many new facts about biodiversity. A little bit on biodiversity and ecosystem services, the threats to biodiversity, and then I'm going to say something about my favorite priority setting mechanisms, hotspots and high biodiversity wilderness areas, and finish up with some suggestions for recognizing some of the very good things, some amazing things that the GEF has done, and some suggestions for a few things that might be done in the future. Now, there are many, many things that need to be done, and Naoko touched on some of the most important ones, but again, this is from my perspective and the things that I consider most important and most effective in biodiversity conservation. So what is it? It's the wealth of genes, species, ecosystems, and ecological processes that makes our living planet what it is. These are the definitions that I like. The CBD has a very similar one, but these are the ones that I use most of the time. It's the sum total of all life on Earth. It's our living legacy to future generations, and more we're understanding that it's also the basic underpinning of sustainable development. So a few facts about this biodiversity that most people don't realize, most of you do know about it, but we have about 1.9 million species known to science, and the other night in his opening presentation, Christian Samper talked about the Encyclopedia of Life, and that has now more than 1 million species registered, which is great, but in point of fact, we don't really know how many are out there. It could be 5 million. Most of the estimates now are running at around 10 million. Could be 30 million. We're not really sure. So we're really in an age of discovery, finding new species hand over fist. And this is not surprising for, let's say, tropical canopy beetles or deep sea ocean organisms, but the ignorance that we have really relates even to our closest living relatives, the non-human primates. This is a monkey species that I described from the central Brazilian Amazon. In, I think it was 1992, the Maués marmoset. You were a co-author on that one, weren't you? And since 1990, we found 95 new species of primates. That represents about 20% of all species. That's phenomenal. And it's been heavy, in particular, in one of the most heavily impacted regions of the world, and that is Madagascar, where in 1994, when we did the first field guide to lemurs, we had 50 species. We did another one in 2006, we had 71 now, and then the third volume, the third edition of this field guide, we had 101, and now